Black pepper, the most ubiquitous spice in the world, found upon every table in every restaurant in the Western world, and various other cultures around the globe. The story of this flowering vine that produces little peppercorns that creates a minor sensation of heat is an underrated and fascinating tale of a product that went from being the pinnacle of spice to being overshadowed by other ingredients that are far more potent. It's a story of something that was once incredibly expensive and of prestige that ended up becoming very cheap and mundane. These little peppercorns, and the grinded up powdered granules that they create, have a history of humanity's ability to master Mother Nature, explore new lands, create new foods, produce commerce, and not to mention, make fries taste a lot better. A lot of people don't know that black pepper isn't actually pepper. Pepper negrum, which is the scientific name, aren't actually a type of chili pepper. Black pepper comes from a flowering vine, and peppercorns are considered a type of fruit, given the fact that they have seeds within the body structure of the ovaries. Now, this is in sharp contrast to what we also call peppers, chili peppers, which, yes, is also a fruit, but does in fact produce capsaicin, something that black peppers do not. On top of that, chili peppers are far, far more potent in many circumstances. Throughout the vast majority of human history, these two types of spicinesses resided on different parts of the world. Capsaicin and the chili peppers that hold them are native to the Americas, whereas black peppercorns are actually native to the Old World. We still don't know why these plants produce this sort of potency. The most likely explanation, at least when it comes to capsaicin, is that plants produced it in order to prohibit mammals from chewing it. The mammals would feel the heat and spit them out rather than grinding up the seeds and making them go to waste. Birds, on the other hand, just swallow seeds because they have beaks, and then they fly around, shit out the seeds, and thereby many of the seedlings end up dispersing. Now, as far as black pepper is concerned, I would say that this is most likely the same similar scenario, but we really don't know for sure, as black pepper just isn't as potent as the capsaicin you see in your actual chili peppers. Peppercorns are not native to the Americas. They're most likely native to Southeast Asia and the Indian subcontinent. One unusual quirk of history is that Europeans, in their search for spices and other luxury items from India and the rest of the Orient, eventually accidentally landed in the Americas and eventually encountered actual chili peppers, which they confused for being peppercorns, and that's why black peppercorns and black pepper oftentimes shares the same name as many varieties of red chili peppers, even though black pepper isn't an actual pepper. But I'm getting ahead of myself here. These plants originate from Southeast Asia, bordering the Indian subcontinent, and through the use of some seed dispersal by wild birds and eventually by humans, they found their way throughout much of the Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia. The most famous of which was the Malabar pepper, which was cultivated en masse in a region of India known as the state of Kerala in the modern day. This is at the very southwestern tip of the country, a region known for its native Dravidian population, an area where indigenous peoples of the Indian subcontinent maintain more of their culture than those in the north, which was more heavily influenced by Indo-Europeans. The ethnic group in this region are known as the Tamil people, who developed a fairly complex culinary culture, and were known for their export of black pepper. The most famous of which is, yes, again, the aforementioned Malabar pepper, among various others. With the arrival of Alexander the Great in the Indian subcontinent, Europeans would encounter some version of the black peppercorn, even though they didn't actually go to southern India at this point. And some, across much distant further lands, would hear whispers of these fabled pseudo-heat sensation little balls that would be dried up and eaten. The Romans, while not conquering anywhere near the lands of India, did hear of these peppers and would occasionally gain access to them through trade routes. However, it was only the wealthiest that gained access to them, and thereby it never became a staple of their diets. However, even the uncouth barbarians of Germanic origins like Alaric the Visigoth was well aware of the tastiness and value of black peppercorns, as he demanded several thousand pounds of the product in part of his ransom when he set siege to Rome. Eventually, with the rise of the Arabs during the Middle Ages, many of them would set up caravan posts across the Middle East, connecting much of the Indian subcontinent, Central Asia, North Africa, and Europe along these trade routes. And black pepper would become more popular than ever. Given the fact that these peppercorns could be dried up, and they are not particularly heavy, they would be able to be transported along long distances without rotting. Keep in mind that this was obviously at a period of time before refrigeration. Peppers were so coveted that many people refer to them as black gold, a term in various languages that by and large refers to crude oil today, so put that into perspective. There are even some evidence, or pieces of evidence, to suggest that these peppercorns were used as a form of currency for significant transactions, or at the very least as a gift between two partners in the aftermath of an agreement of a major transaction. You probably have heard that black pepper, along with other spices, were used to cover the taste of rotting meat. And after all, before the age of refrigeration, this would have been quite important. The truth behind this claim, though, is rather contestable. For one, it was usually the rich people who could afford spices, and those rich people were oftentimes the same people who could afford fresh meat regularly. So it'd be more likely that they would have access to fresh meat and wouldn't need the spices to mask the taste of rotting meat. It's more likely that they served a different purpose. However, it is true that black pepper does maintain some antimicrobial properties. Not that the people at the time were aware of the existence of bacteria, let alone their ability to cause disease. But they probably saw some efficiency and efficacy. Granted, it is very minor and nowhere near as successful at destroying microbes as salt. The peppercorn, nonetheless, would eventually travel further eastward as well, becoming a major staple crop in what is now Indonesia. Many of the islands of Indonesia would be known as the Spice Islands, attracting the Portuguese and later the Dutch and British colonists. However, while peppercorn was popular in this region, it eventually got overshadowed on these islands by cloves, mace, and nutmeg. Black pepper would also find its way northward from there into China. Now, you've almost certainly heard of one type of chili called the Szechuan chilies, or the Szechuan peppercorns. These are, you guessed it, from Szechuan. However, it's important to note that they actually aren't related to black pepper. It's actually a totally different type of species that kind of look similar, but you can kind of tell that the texture is a little bit different, and they tend to be more acidic and potently spicier, along with having a little bit more of a tangy aftertaste. They're excellent on stir-fried cuisines, and they're sometimes used in traditional Chinese medicine, although the efficacy is, let's just say, bullshit for the most part. Black pepper is still used in Chinese cuisine, but it doesn't have the same sort of relevance or interest that the Szechuan peppercorn does. Moving forward, the rise of globalization, in large part due to the Portuguese, Spanish, and later other European empires, contributed to the black pepper spreading across much of the world. Today is considered a staple on many dinner tables across much of the known world due to better cultivation, artificial selection, and technology. It's basically gone from being a luxury item to being very cheap. It's oftentimes considered to be a mundane spice, and many people consider it to be quote-unquote the white person spice, since oftentimes it's the least spicy type of spice you think of when you think of spice, and is particularly popular among people with Northwestern European descent. Now, I'm not going to get into the racial politics of that. This is just what other people have stated. Regardless of culture war issues that I'm not interested in delving to, what is indisputable is the economic dominance of black pepper on the world market. It makes up 20% of the international spice trade. It's dirt cheap, and for that low price, it pretty much ensures its prolonged dominance over the international markets, unless something catastrophic happens to the peppercorn plantation, such as disease or some sort of other international trade war. Before I end this video, I want to mention that not all black pepper is, well, black. You've certainly seen white peppercorns. White peppercorns are actually from the same plant. It's just composed of the seed alone. The skin, which is darker and wrinklier, is removed. And that's why white pepper is, well, white pepper. And you can tell this not only from the color but also from the smooth texture. White pepper is quite popular in soups and stews, and is particularly known for its aroma. And some people claim that it tastes better, although this is debatable. There's also the green peppercorn, which is made from the same fruit at an unripened stage, similar to the black pepper, but keep in mind that the green color is oftentimes due to several treatments during the manufacturing process. This is why you're more likely to see green peppercorns not in their dry form, but usually in some sort of pickled brine or vinegar. And this adds to their acidity and tartness, which some people enjoy. There are also pink peppercorns, which are actually known as the Peruvian peppercorns. Most of these pink peppercorns are produced in Brazil today, and they have a beautiful pink color, but they're not actual real peppercorns. They're not related to black peppers as they're native to the Americas. They're also known for their more complex fruity tone. As stated before, Brazil is the largest producer of pink peppercorns, and they kind of have a sort of reputation for being a little bougie and exotic, given their high price point. Nonetheless, you can find mixes of peppercorns today that include the black peppercorns, white peppercorns, green peppercorns, and yes, some pink and Szechuan peppercorns, all in one package. And there you have it. That's a brief history of black pepper and its variations and varieties and pretend varieties. And in the next video, I'm going to be going over a brief history of salt. Thanks for watching.